this week's episode of SLL News. In this week's episode, we will be discussing the green movement and environmentalism, where 3 of our reporters from across the world will be sharing their observations of the prevalence of adult education in the environmental movement.
For me, being green means being environmentally aware about your community and sustaining the resources for the future. Being green is more than just recycling your trash. It's about finding new ways to be energy efficient and reduce your carbon footprint. The environmental movement is a great example of a deconstruction of the structural and psychosocial barriers to vertical integration in learning, as it's been channeled through different methods of learning and integrated into our daily lives. This movement has progressed to the point where being green is second nature. You don't have to make a grand gesture to make a difference with this movement. There are virtually no barriers to be a part of this movement and to learn more about how to impact your community and make a change.
Personally, green means to be sustainable, to be aware and responsible of your personal impact that you have on the environment, as well as to recycle. It is a global and individual initiative to be environmentally conservative. Having grown up in Vancouver, green has always been such a prominent topic, emphasized in so many areas within my life, whether it be at work, at home, or at school. Having come to Calgary and working in the oil and gas industry, I have noticed less of an influence around the green movement, but it is still prevalent around the city. When I say this, that means that there are less grocery stores pushing organic foods, such as Whole Foods back at home. There are fewer bike lanes, as well as fewer green buildings, such as the ones in Vancouver. People do still walk and bike to work. Recycling is also still emphasized, as well as purchasing environmentally friendly goods. I think Canada as a nation is very aware of their environmental footprint and consciously making an effort to reduce waste.
Being green to me is making a conscious and consistent effort to educate not only oneself of environmental issues, but to engage in conversation and promote any kind of learning, be it formal, informal, or non-formal, about such issues within your community, and to act upon this knowledge to refrain from further environmental damage. Singapore is a country with many restrictions placed on its people. You can find individuals being fined heavily for behaviors such as chewing gum or littering. Thus, people have been somewhat conditioned to follow such laws to avoid fines, rather than embrace the reasons behind these laws. To truly consider somewhere a green country, I believe the people should show voluntary initiative to protect the environment rather than be forced to by heavy fines issued by the government.
I'm definitely lucky enough to live in such an environmentally friendly city where I see a bunch of initiatives around my community, especially here at UBC with our separated garbage bin program. So instead of throwing all my garbage in one bin, I can separate it into food scraps and recycle my coffee cups and such. I don't think people realize, but the simple act of separating your trash is conditioned learning through informal methods. There are also various initiatives put forth by businesses in Vancouver, such as the Enviro Visa from Vancity, which donates 5% of the visa profits to environmentally friendly projects in Vancouver. Businesses here are constantly trying to find new ways to stick out in the community, and being environmentally friendly is another way to market and promote their businesses, as well as give back to the community and set standards for other businesses. It's a constant cycle of improving environmental standards by teaching others in the community how businesses are doing their part to offer products and services while reducing their waste or by using more energy efficient sources.
The City of Calgary has outlined some strategic environmental initiatives identifying issues such as groundwater quality, urban air quality, sustainability and sustainable communities, and other issues that may have long-term health effects on the health or environment of Calgarians. Other orders of government that they work with include Clean Air Strategic Alliance, the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as private sector partnerships and liaisons with educational institutions. Other initiatives around the city include the Dump the Junk campaign, where an organization can sell or give away junk mail stickers to employees, having all proceeds go directly to supporting environmental work in Calgary. Additionally, courses can also be offered, such as Ecologic 101. It is a course that organizations provide employees to become more informed on waste reduction, waste conservation, green driving habits, and green cleaning. Additionally, there are cell phone collections that are also encouraged within organizations to reduce cell phone waste, as well as a greenhouse gas reduction plan.
In the surrounding community, there are definitely traces of environmentalism. There are recycling bins available around public apartments, private residences, and prominently around office buildings. Though it does not appear that the local community centers actively promote environmentalism, the resources are available. Singapore's environmentalism has historically been prevalent on a government level rather than a personal level, and that restrictions are placed upon companies and initiatives are conducted on a large national scale rather than that of small communities. However, education is slowly coming to a more individual level as primary schools launch a teaching kit to aid instructors to educate children on the importance of cleanliness, as well as hosting eco-school conferences. Though this kind of formal education is designed for children, adults will inadvertently learn from these programs as well, and hopefully make a conscious effort to continue this education.
Well, personally, I think the biggest factor has to do with climate change, but localized reasoning for why the environmental movement has gained traction in BC has to do with the changing attitudes of citizens as well as a concern for our resources. Here in BC, we have a lot of natural resources that we want to sustain for the future. For instance, we have the vast forest Greenland, which supports the lumber industry and acts as home to plenty of wildlife animals, as well as the wild salmon industry. These are two examples of resources that have been affected with the overexploitation and pollution of the environment today. The environmental movement has educated our community by raising awareness of how we're impacting these resources, in particular with the wild salmon industry and the decreasing amount of salmon returning to the Fraser River over the years. Some speculated reasons for this are the effect of climate change, pollution, and overfishing, which has harmed the habitat and level of supply of these resources. So what this movement has done is raise awareness and teach those in this industry about these issues and how they need to find ways to change and reduce their impact to these natural resources.
So I feel like the environmental movement has gained traction in recent years due to the effects of global warming, but that in itself is a hot topic worldwide. I think specifically in Alberta, there are three main focuses: the Alberta's oil sands, the climate change, and the state of the environment. So Canada is the third largest proven crude oil reserve in the world, after Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, with 1 out of 16 jobs directly relating to the energy industry. With climate change being such a global topic, it affects everything from natural disaster frequency to feeding the population. Aside from being one of the largest provincial emitters of greenhouse gases in Canada due to its role as a global energy supplier, Alberta has implemented a climate change strategy. There is an industrial commercial emissions reduction action plan that includes facilities emitting more than 100,000 tons of greenhouse gases. They must reduce their emissions by 12% or pay a fee of $15 per ton. That is over target. As well, Alberta has invested $1.3 billion in carbon capture and storage projects. Lastly, the state of the environment tracks the cumulative effects of development on the environment. So this includes condition, pressure, response, and performance indicators, which help monitor the progress of each instituted environmental program in Alberta.
Adults are problem-oriented. Thus, because Singapore is a country with limited natural resources, its first priority is to ameliorate this issue. Thus, Singapore has done its best to keep its air and water clean through various government-sponsored projects. In recent years, Singapore has noticed increased scrutiny from its citizens regarding its air pollution and PSI, as the prevalence of haze in the area has alarmed many residents. Thus, in this aspect, the environmental movement has definitely gained traction as residents of Singapore have noticed a visible difference in their air quality and fear for the health of their loved ones, and actively look for an opportunity to protect themselves from this, look to prevent it, and actively seek ways to use what they learn today to their benefit tomorrow. Informal learning has also played a role to push the environmental movement forward, as schools have started to prioritize teaching children the importance of being environmentally friendly. They bring such knowledge home and share this information with the older generations in their community.
So here in BC, our government is actually the first to introduce legislation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2020. So not only is it a goal, but it's actually a legal obligation put forth by the Vancouver and BC government. It feels as if our provincial and municipal government is constantly finding new ways to pioneer the environmental movement with a progressive approach to create a better society. For one, the problem solving by creating new initiatives, such as experimenting with this new program called the Green Bin program. The Vancouver government has actually done a great job with introducing non-formal and informal methods of learning with this Green Bin system. So this long-term program will eventually become like second nature to the citizens of Vancouver as a method of informal learning, and it will be passed on from generation to generation as an everyday activity. I've seen the Vancouver government offer workshops through local community centers to promote and explain the effects of this Green Bin system through non-formal learning. So basically, these workshops, they're explaining the importance and the effects of separating your trash properly. Rather than lump everything into one bin, Vancouverites are separating their food scraps into green bins to be recycled elsewhere and turned into quality products such as top-grade soil. By doing so, we're estimating to reduce the amount of garbage sent to landfills by 40% with this separated trash program.
There are many rules and regulations that are being administered to ensure that the environmental movement is being fully supported by the Albertan government. The Alberta Environment and Sustainable Resource Development is a provincial ministry of the Executive Council of Alberta, and it has several agencies reporting to it, including the Alberta Recycling Management Authority, the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Fund, and the Natural Resources Conservation Board. As of March 2014, it is the single regulator for energy development in Alberta, enforcing environmental laws and water permits for energy developments. Additionally, the Albertan government has been tackling climate change and air quality, as well as highway cleanup campaigns. In regards to the prevalent energy industry in Alberta, Canada has one of the most regulated industries in the world. The Alberta Energy Regulator regulates the development of Alberta's energy resources that include natural gas, oil sands, coal, and pipelines. Additionally, large projects may require an environmental impact assessment under the Alberta Environment Protection and Enhancement Act. Other regulations include conservation and reclamation, emissions trading, pesticide sales, potable water, and release reporting.
There have been many legislations passed in an attempt to conserve the environment. A prime example of this is the Environmental Protection and Management Act, which is an overarching act containing many clauses regulating energy conservation and the emission of chemicals. The government has also proposed a blueprint to map out future decisions to expand on environmentalism, including investing $1 billion in sustainable development programs, enhancing environmental education, and remodeling buildings to make them more energy efficient. Several ministries have also been established to support environmental sustainability, including the National Environment Agency and the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. These groups work with people from the voluntary movement of environmental conservation to educate and promote environmental issues to the public via non-formal methods. Singapore approaches adult environmental education in humanist orientation, and that much of the education is centered on what participants already know and have teachers build upon and cohere that information.